A boy and a girl were in a car and ran out of gas. They heard something. The boy got out to look for a phone and he told her not to turn around or get out of the car and to lock all the doors. He was gone for a long time and she kept hearing noises on the roof of the car. She never turned around at all. She just lay on the seat. She fell asleep and finally woke up. It was morning. She remembered what had happened, so she sat up slowly and looked out the front windshield. Then she turned slowly toward the back window, and she saw her boyfriend's head sitting on the trunk. She screamed and got out. The sounds she heard that night were the fingernails of her boyfriend scraping the top of the car where somebody had hung him feet first in a tree. This story is told as the honest truth. It explains what can happen when someone runs out of gas in the Pocomoke forest. Lena and Max had been dating for a few weeks, and they decided to take a romantic stroll in the forest one evening. The sun was setting, and the air was crisp and cool. They walked hand in hand, admiring the beauty of nature around them. As they reached a small clearing, Max pulled Lena in for a kiss. She melted into his arms, and they kissed passionately. Suddenly, they heard a strange noise, like a twig snapping. They pulled away from each other and looked around. At first, they didn't see anything out of the ordinary. But then, they noticed that the trees around them had started to move. It was like they were alive, bending and swaying as if in a violent wind, but there was no wind. Lena and Max's hearts began to race as the trees closed in around them, forming a tight circle. They were trapped, unable to move or escape. Suddenly, a terrifying creature emerged from the shadows. It was a tall, humanoid figure with long, spindly arms and legs. Its skin was a sickly gray, and its eyes glowed an eerie green. Lena and Max were frozen with fear as the creature approached them, its sharp teeth bared. The creature let out a blood-curdling scream, and Lena and Max screamed in terror. They tried to run, but the trees were too thick, and they couldn't escape. The creature lunged at them, and Lena and Max knew they were going to die. Just when all hope seemed lost, the creature suddenly vanished, and the trees returned to their normal position. Lena and Max were left alone in the forest, trembling and bewildered. They didn't know what had happened, but they knew they had narrowly escaped a terrible fate. They quickly made their way back to their car, vowing never to return to that forest again. From that day on, Lena and Max never forgot their terrifying encounter in the forest, and they always wondered what other terrifying secrets lay hidden in the woods. One day I was picking mushrooms in the forest. The weather was overcast, everything seemed to be as usual. Going into the depths of the forest, one place attracted me. At first I thought it was a dump, but when I got closer it was completely different. It was an abandoned road for cars. Children's shoes were scattered on the sides and the bushes, some details were visible in the distance. The whole place was strewn with some photographs that could not be seen from the dirt and a long period of time. Maybe it's not even photos. There were singed clothes and other junk lying along this abandoned road. In fact, anything could have happened here, but I had only bad thoughts related to a murder or an accident. Looking at my watch, I realized that it was time to leave the forest and go home. Suddenly I heard some rustling behind me. I looked around, but there was no one there. I was moving slowly out of the forest when suddenly someone rushed past at my feet from behind, at least that's what it seemed to me. I turned around abruptly and started scanning the entire area. Between the trees, as if something white, without a shape, swept by. It scared me a lot and I ran away from this place. Don't know. Maybe it's my imagination running wild, but considering the fact that it was found at that place, it could have been a ghost. Ghosts of girls frozen in the forest in the Olekminski district. This terrible story happened quite recently, in the same year when a girl froze in the Kangalaski district. On December 20, 2015, the girls met with young people who were acquaintances of one of them. During the conversation, the company left in 2 cars to rest in a hunting hut located in the area, Us Bays, 45 kilometers from the district center. Subsequently, the girls did not want to stay overnight in the hut and went on foot towards the city of Olekminsk. Police officers found their bodies a day later on the territory of an abandoned summer farm. The girls froze to death. Since then, many have seen 2 girls wandering along the road at night and trying to stop cars. This story happened to me a couple of years ago. It was a warm summer evening, the sun was already setting and a pleasant summer twilight came. Grasshoppers chirped merrily under the windows, and young people and local cats lazily strolled along the paths of the neighborhood. Everything breathed calmness and regularity. All around, but not in my husband's apartment. As it often happens, we quarreled with him about nothing and for nothing. In one far from perfect moment, the husband had the temerity to say something that, even in a fit of anger, it is better not to mention. Resentment overshadowed reason and feelings, and I, throwing something light on my shoulders and putting my phone in my pocket beforehand, jumped out into the street. Already near the entrance, the hand groped for the car keys in the pocket of the cardigan and the decision came by itself to go to get some air and calm down. Turning on light music in the car, I drove out of the city towards the village, located about 60 kilometers from us. After smoking a couple of cigarettes and drying my tears, I realized that elementary anger had replaced resentment. The phone was silent, my husband was not interested in where I was and what was happening to me. Anger at my husband forced me to make a decision, which I very much regretted later. About halfway to the village, there was an unremarkable turn off the road, which led to a small swampy lake in the depths of the forest, so I decided to turn off this road and spend the night there on the shore, turning off the phone, let my husband worry. That's what I thought at the time and it seemed to me that it was very reasonable and correct. After parking the car and smoking another cigarette, I began to lay down for the night in the back seat. Fortunately there was a thin blanket and a small decorative pillow. After getting comfortable and turning off the phone, which was still silent, I dozed off. My awakening came from a sharp sound like a blow. From a dream, I did not understand what it was and, getting up, began to look at the darkness. Despite the summer night, it was pretty dark and it was not too visible. Deciding that I had dreamed it, I tried to get back to sleep again, when I heard a sound again, an unpleasant clap, like a palm hitting a car. After checking in a panic and making sure that all the doors were closed and seeing no one near the car, I began to climb from the back seat to the front to turn on the headlights and start the car. At the moment when I was climbing over and I heard this terrible sound, the sound as if someone was scratching metal with a fork or knife, in general, something metallic. I understand that it is nearby and scratching my car, but there is no one. Turning on the high beam headlights, I started trying to start the car. I managed to do it, despite the fact that the car was brand new. It was not even a year old at that time from the moment of purchase at the dealership, not immediately. In tears, with wildly shaking hands, my whole life before my eyes, I rushed along the road without understanding. Rushing home in hysterics, I tried to explain to my husband, who was already quite alarmed by my absence, what had happened to me in the forest. He, as a sane and rational person, tried to find a logical explanation for what happened, but when he found a huge scratch on the side of the car in the morning, as if the paint had been scratched with a nail along with a primer, i.e. with sufficient force, his skepticism decreased. I still don't know what it was. The scratch has already been repaired, but the memories have not gone anywhere, they are still with me. Since then, you can't lure me to the forest for a picnic or for mushrooms and berries, although I used to love it all and went with pleasure.